But welcome everybody to the latest installment of the River City Whiskey Society's whiskey tastings. We're just a group of friends who got together. I got what 3 years ago now, 3.5 years ago, and decided that we wanted to start elevating the Sacramento whiskey scene. And I'm pretty confident in saying that if you would have asked any one of us at Streets of London 3 years ago if we were going to be doing a tasting with a single malt from Israel, I would have called you crazy. But we have progressed to that point, and we're very excited about what we've progressed to because we've got to drink a lot of amazing things. We've developed a lot of amazing friendships, and you can see a lot of them are here tonight. And so we thank you guys for your continued support. And, we're really, really excited to do this with you guys. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to the guys because they're real geniuses and, true artists here. And, if you guys, like I said, if you have questions throughout this, please, put them into the chat. I can kind of facilitate from there, but we're really going to let Tal and Tomer talk about M&H, kind of the unique problems that you face when you produce whiskey in Tel Aviv, and some of the processes they go through. I've seen, been privileged enough to sit with these guys a couple times virtually, and it's been always really great. I'm excited for you guys. So I'm going to stop yammering. I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Go. Wow us.
Good morning, guys, or good evening. For us, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. If you talk about one problem of making whiskey in Tel Aviv is the parking, of course. It's not the regular distillery. So we have to be honest. We promised you a tour of the distillery, but we were so pumped up to be at 6 o'clock in the morning at the distillery. That means Tomer lives just 1 hour outside Tel Aviv. So we had to wake up in the morning, brush our teeth, and run to the distillery, connect everything. And then we were sitting in front of the laptop yesterday at 6 o'clock in the morning because it was the 6th of August 6th in Israel. So then we understood that we got the wrong day. So what we did is we just recorded whatever we wanted to show you yesterday with Tomer's phone. So it's not a big movie quality. But anyway, it's like that at the distillery because sometimes you don't get a good reception. And Tomer just magically edited it yesterday because today is Friday and the distillery is not working today. So just for you to understand, we managed to get jet lag without flying 2 days in a row. We're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I guess we can start with a little tour in the distillery. We hope it's gonna go great, and then we'll start maybe something that is not coffee. So Tomer?
Actually, hi everyone. I can't share it. I'll ask Drew if you can share it. I just sent you a link.
Yeah, I'm going to be able, at least I think I'm going to be able to. So can you guys all see this?
Yeah.
Is it working? Thumbs up, right? I know I asked you guys to be mute, so sometimes I forget that. Let's see if it works.
No.
Well, you guys might have to do a voiceover for it. They call this ADR in Hollywood. So I don't think the sound will come through for the video for me to the presentation, but you guys know where this is at, so you might be able to give some insight.
Okay.
So we start with the visitor center of the distillery. Just been filmed yesterday when we were at the distillery.
So yeah, this is a part of our visitor center, and this is the way into the distillery. Everything sits in one side, so the offices are there, and the visitor center usually Pre-COVID days, around 12,000 people a year, around the 1,000 people a year at the distillery. At the visitor center now, we keep it either closed or very small scale, because the tour contains an actual tour inside, and you don't need anyone to be sick from the production team. So during the first lockdown, we didn't have a second lockdown, but it's kind of the same situation right now. But so during the first lockdown, we were distilling all kinds of sugars for sanitizers and stuff like that. Tomer, it's yours.
So it's the backyard of the distillery where all the ingredients and the casks comes in. You can see the empty cask waiting to be filled. And this is the steam that gives us all the energy. As you all know, 3 ingredients to produce whiskey: barley, yeast, and water. And we start with the water lab. So what we basically do is reverse osmosis, because Tel Aviv municipal water is not really good quality. It's too hard. So we do reverse osmosis, and then we add minerals and salts by our unique recipe. The barley comes from here inside to the grain mill. Can you see the movie good?
Yeah, it's okay.
So the grain mill is really old one. You probably know these things from Scottish distilleries. A lot has kind of same grain mill.
It's a very big one. It's a very big one, and we got it actually as a gift with when we bought the wash still. But it working great.
So from the grain mill, where we just crushed the seeds of the barley, we move to the mash tun, where we add the water, the hot water.
This was all made in Israel by an Israeli company that usually makes fermenting tanks and all kinds of dairy facilities.
So there are 2 unique things about this mash tun. The first is the angle of the entrance, the water and barley that mix in 45 degrees on the air before it goes into the mash tun. That causes a really good extraction of the sugar content. And then we have false bottom, so it's semi-lauter tone. The false bottom is to clarify the wort before it goes next to the fermentation tanks.
So the actual the entrance for the water and the barley helps us make up for the fact that we're not working on weekends. So we cannot do 3 waters like most of the distilleries in Scotland. We do only 2 waters, but then we get more sugar extract because of the angles and the way that the grist and the water mix in the air.
Before moving on to the fermenters, we have to chill the wort with the heat exchanger that on the wall. Fermentation, where we add the yeast, of course. The fermentation time is up to 72 hours. In the hot season, which is now, we ferment for around 48 hours. And we get a wash of 7-8% alcohol before moving it to the stills. For a double distillation, we basically follow the Scotch rules, although of course we will never be Scotch.
First, for us in Israel, there's no regulations and no, because we were the first whiskey distillery, so there is actually no regulations. So, but we are from day one, we aimed to be international. So we follow the Scottish regulations of 3 years double distillation malted barley.
So 9,000 liters, the war still, really old one. We found it in Romania. Actually, it was in second-hand website. And the spirit still, the second distillation takes place in 3,500 liters, still produced for us by Carl in Germany. And here we do the cut, and the cut is very narrow, from 80 to 70%. The line arms are 45 degrees down of both stills. That's to get a really oily and thick new make.
As you can see, hot season is almost every day. And now at 6:15 in the morning, it's around 20, 27, 28 centigrade Celsius in Tel Aviv right now.
This is the gin still. It's small 250 liter alembic still. And the unique thing about the gin is that we produce it from our own new make or spirit. We don't produce it from neutral spirit.
So we don't buy spirits like some of the whiskey distilleries that makes gin. We start everything from barley, and everything starts from the new make. So most of it goes into the casks, and some of it goes into this little alembic. 48 hours of maceration, but we'll talk about it when we have the thing.
So we have two big warehouses on site. Big for us, not like in America, is up to 1,000 casks each one. And these are the warehouses. In the second warehouse where we enter now, we have a small tasting room for groups where we can let people drink straight from the cask. Most of the casks are ex-bourbon, about around 75%, but we have a lot of other cask types. We really like to experience cask types, cask varieties. We'll talk about it later.
But you can see some differences in the sizes of casks. So we have, of course, sherry butts and cognac casks and some others, wine casks, of course. I'm sorry about the quality of the movie. It was by Tomer's phone yesterday in the middle of the night.
I think it looks great. I think you guys are doing a solid job. Like I said, this is just classic Hollywood ADR right now, my friends.
Yeah, it's craft.
Yeah, it's very hands-on.
Yeah. Well, it's not the gas station. This is the cask filling station.
And then just before bottling, the vatting tank.
So this is the cask ramp, which filters a little bit of the char of the wood inside, and then it pumps into this new vatting tank. That, of course, first Tomer makes the blend in his lab, and this is our small bottling line. So everything is just, as you can see, it's just a little walk inside from my office or to Tomer's office, and this is back to the visitor center. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the sharing there. Okay, so we did have a couple questions to start off. And so Patrick, just want to know, do you notice a difference in the hot season versus the cold in the distillate, example for 48 versus 72 hours?
Yes, in the cold season, it's more close to the 72 hours. And now in the hot season, it's quicker because it's reached the point of the fermentation that we're happy with, quicker because of the hot season, because of the hot temperatures.
Okay, and then
new make ABV comes out from the still after second distillation at 73% ABV, ABV nut proof, and diluted just a little bit before entering the cask to 63.5% ABV.
Okay, why don't we jump into the gin? Because if you guys haven't already dived into it, I'm sure it's just taunting you at this point. So why don't you guys pour that one and try it, and then the guys will, you know, talk about what makes it unique and all that. And of course, you know, we encourage you to give your thoughts on what you're tasting as well.
So I'll give you a little just something about the taste before you even taste it. So we are a little island in the Middle East. We're not exactly an island, but we are surrounded with countries that you cannot actually not drive through them, and but we are all a mix. So some of I think that the Israeli cuisine, which is booming all over the world right now, it's because of the mix. And the mix is, you know, first of all, Jews that came over from all over the world. Like my mother's from Bulgaria, and my father was from the Ukraine, and my wife's father is from Iraq, and her mother's from Berlin. So just think about dinner with my family, and mix this with the Mediterranean, which we are. You know, the barley, atmosphere, the climate, the raw ingredients. And then, of course, Tel Aviv is a mixed city. We have Jaffa, which is one city with Tel Aviv. Jaffa is 4,000 years old, and Tel Aviv is 100 years old. So the whole thing together, the Arab cuisine, the Jews that came from all over the world, we all do it together. When we all, the flavors are crazy. And when you're talking about our gin, it was born from that. So of course the raw ingredient is the barley. The raw ingredient is the same new make which we make the whiskey out of, but then we add our own local botanicals. And I think Tomer can tell you what he thought about when he was actually developing this recipe.
Well, we have this little presentation about the production process. I think most of your question will be answered by this. I'll just move quickly because we saw it in the movie, but you have it in front of you. So most of the barley that we produce is unpeated. It's from mountains in the UK. And just 2 weeks every year we are doing a peated barley that comes right now from Czech Republic. But we are just now changing to other suppliers, so we'll check the barley. Every batch is 1 ton of barley, and we don't work on weekends, so it's around 450 tons a year right now. We're just about to expand the capacity by the end of this year by around 25%. We have now 4 stainless steels, and fermentation is from 60 to 72 hours.
Even less than 60, as we said before.
Yeah, we check the stage of the fermentation every time, and we just move it to the distillation when it's ready. Distillation, double distillation, we follow the Scotch rule, so it's to produce single malt whiskey. We use double pot still traditional distillation. First one is 9,000 liters, second one 3,500 liters, and the maturation will place for around more than 2,000 casks. I think it's too optimistic to have 2,500. And the current capacity of the distillery is 800 casks a year. We're just about to expand it, as I say.
Omar, let's jump to the gin, and then we can go back to the casks and everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So as we said, it's I think the only ingredient that doesn't come from Israel is the juniper. It's not cold enough here to grow juniper. There actually is some juniper, wild ones in the mountains of the Galilee, but it's not good enough for not consistent. So Tomer calls it, you know, just walking through a spice market. We have Tel Aviv spice market is just like 5 minutes walk, 10 minutes walk from the distillery. So, Tomer, just tell them a little bit about your tours to the spice.
Yeah, it took a while to make the gin recipe, and around 30 to 40 trials and experiences, and we use 8 different botanicals. 7 of them, as Tal said, are from Israel, and I think the most unique is zatar. Don't know if all of you know what is zatar, but it's some kind of relative to oregano, to wild oregano.
And we use it fresh. Most of the time we use this fresh za'atar, which is grows wild on the mountains, mostly on the mountains of Jerusalem.
Yeah, Patrick loves his za'atar in the egg. And it's some kind of Mediterranean spice herb, really nice. Look for it. But other ingredients are oranges, just cut in full, and all the oranges inside, lemon peels, chamomile, lemon verbena, black pepper, cinnamon.
Black pepper.
And
we got all. Yeah, so we use lemon peels, and of course oranges are from the distillery is just in the southern part of Tel Aviv, which is Jaffa. Oranges, Jaffa oranges. So we use those, the fresh ones. There is not so many orchards right now at Jaffa, but it used to be, just the number one export for Israel used to be oranges. Until we understood that in a hot country like ours, which doesn't have a lot of water, if you export citric fruits, it's like exporting water. So it became a different, I think they sold the name to Spain or something like that.
So we also have an oak-aged version of the gin. It's just the same recipe, the same gin goes into the cask for around 3 months. And
but it's not a regular cask. It's an STR, a red wine STR cask. So we'll talk about it when we get to the whiskey part. But it is a different kind of oak-aged gin. Usually, if you come across oak-aged gin, there are either new oak or just second fill, but really oaky. And this one is more fruity, same gin, but with red wine notes, or STR, which is a different kind of cask. And then I think we have another version that, because we like to play and try all the time, so we have a distillery exclusive. It's a peated cask oak-aged gin, which is crazy for a peated Negroni, but we just made, I don't know, 300 bottles or 400 bottles, something like that. Just one Lafroy cask.
Yeah, so while you're sipping, I think we'll talk about the casks, and then we'll move to the whiskey, or what we have more.
We could start with the 2 blooms, I think, or maybe we'll do the unpeated and then the classic, and then go back to the peated one.
So the core range cask, or as I told you, most of the casks are ex-bourbon at the distillery. It's around 75%. Then we have the STR cask, which all Jim Swan distilleries, we didn't mention gin. So yeah. From the beginning, we joined forces with Dr. Jim Swan, that is more familiar with distilleries like Kavalan or Kilchoman, that you probably all know.
And Darren.
The STR cask are shaved, toast, and recharred. It's basically was a wine cask, and been through the process of shaved inside, toasted, and then recharred. And it's really good for hot climate maturation. Although most of the time we find 3 years old or more whiskeys too intense comes from the STR cask. So we use it just to flavor. We move later to the classic, and then we'll talk about how much we use it inside the blend. Or
So if we take in some other warm climates distilleries like Amrut or Kabbalah, I guess it's even more humid in Taipei than in Tel Aviv, but it's still kind of the same weather. They're using more and more of those STR red wine casks. Our house style is more balanced, it's more delicate, so we use it to season. We didn't like a lot of or too much STR red wine until 3 weeks ago, Tomer, that we had. I think it was because of Sam that we tasted a lot of a 3-year-old or almost 3-year-old single STR red wine cask, and we were amazed because the STR gives you so much character in the first year, and then it balances like any other cask. And usually we taste it in the first year or after a year and a half, and we didn't try a full maturation STRs, and they were doing great. So we have to rethink about the using of STR casks.
So the second tier of our portfolio contains whiskeys from ex-Isla, which are peated, ex-Israeli red wine, and ex-sherry casks. This is the Element series, comes just after the Classic. And it will be available in the US really soon, I think.
No, we have the sherry in the US.
All right.
And the 2 others, I guess, the end of this month is going to be ready.
Hey fellas, what whiskey should everybody have in their glass right now?
I think let's start with unpeated Bloom, whiskey and Bloom.
Okay, so I don't remember how we labeled them, but it might say double cask on there or STR. Okay, double cask. All right.
Double. Yes.
I'm trying to. It was a couple of weeks ago when we did all the labels, so there's a lot of information we could have gone with.
Yeah.
So Tal, do you want to talk about Tel Aviv?
I think I just touched it in a second, but Tel Aviv, if we're talking about a mix, so Tel Aviv is a mix of the mix. And so it's Mediterranean, it's, I guess, until the whole COVID crisis started, it's a 24-hour city with lots of bars and restaurants. And this is the capital of, the culture capital of Israel. Very liberal. I think we have one of the biggest gay parade in the world, and this is in the Middle East. And of course, we always say that Jerusalem is 45 minutes and 3,000 years away from us, so it's not exactly the same atmosphere there. If you're talking about atmosphere, so really, really hot. Most of the time, it's very humid. We have around 300 days of sunshine with temperatures not exactly 16. I think it can go down to maybe 9, 10 degrees deep winter. Never snows, it rains, but then you have few hours of raining and then it's going to be sunny again. And it can go up to 40 degrees. Usually 40 is a bit high for us. You do the translation for Fahrenheit. I don't remember. I think if it's 40, it's probably 112 or something like that. And so usually it's 36, but with 60, 70, 90% humidity in the summer, which is very, very effective for our fast maturation. So the distillery visitor center and the offices are air conditioned, but the rest is very hot and humid. So no climate control at the warehouse whatsoever. This beach here with you saw the high towers, it's, I guess, 5-10 minutes walk or 8 minutes walk from the distillery. So usually when we're flying around, you remember the time that we could fly, but when we're flying, so we always have to keep an eye on the production team if they're not at the beach at the moment with a beer. So this is a little bit about Tel Aviv, and I think that
Dr. Jim Swan liked the most about Israel is the amazing climate playground that he has in such a small country. As you can see, in 400 plus kilometers from north to south, we have 5 different climate zones, and each climate zones allow us to mature cask, to put cask in, and to see the differences. And there are a lot of differences between each climate zone. I think the most interesting one is the Dead Sea, which is the lowest place on Earth, and it's very unlike the distillery, which is very humid and hot, the Dead Sea is even more hotter and more dry. It's very dry. So
it's crazy. You go from Tel Aviv, which is zero, just next to the beach, Mediterranean. You go 45 minutes up to 700, 750 meters above sea level, which is Jerusalem, and then another hour or so, you're in minus 428 meters below sea level. But just to think about it, it's almost like more than a mile or something like a mile. Just when sometimes you have to chew a gum when you're driving because your ear pops, and it's so far from the sun that you actually don't need a sunscreen. It's very hot. The sun is crazy, and I think and the air pressure is a bit high because it's so low. So we are experimenting with that. It's very interesting place, very hot, and we're experimenting. We have around 30 casks there, Tomer, I think so.
around
30.
30 casks. Just to understand the differences, at the distillery we have around 11% angel share a year, but at the Dead Sea we have around 25% angel share evaporates from the cask every year. That means that we are not able to mature full maturation period at the Dead Sea. We have to move it after around 1 year. That's really interesting, that how two twin casks just develop really different between two different climate zones. There are a lot to study from.
It's 25 angel share. With the distillers share, it's around 30 because we're tasting all the time. So let's go back to the unpeated whiskey in bloom.
So the unpeated.
Yeah, it's by the way, for us, it was a young single malt because it was, I think, 2 years. But because of the American regulations, we had to call it whiskey. Tomer, you remember what it is? I don't remember it.
It's 85%
bourbon and STR.
It's bourbon cask, just 15% STR cask inside, and that's why it's double cask called. And it's actually, I don't have it in front of me, so you can tell me what you think.
Here.
So I was just telling the guys, this was one of the original releases that we got in the States, and it was this one in the peated. And historically, I've always been gravitate towards peated expressions, but I absolutely love this one. I've already drank 2 bottles of it, and I actually need to go get another one before they no longer exist. So you guys did a really phenomenal job. And so we did have a question. I think this kind of brings up a bigger point too. Gary would like to know, how do you get kosher sherry cask? I know this is something that we've talked a lot about, and I actually, from our last conversation, the reason that you guys are able to use bourbon cask is like one of my favorite reasons, and like for using anything, in the explanation. So hopefully you guys hit that same note. But so, operating facilities where you do have to consider everything kosher. Could you guys talk a little bit about that, and then how you were able to get the kosher sherry?
Yes.
So first of all, before Tomer will explain about the sherry project, you have to understand that the kosher problems is mostly with wine casks. Okay, it's not a very big issue to make a kosher whiskey. We just don't work on weekends and on Jewish holidays. But it's Tel Aviv, so it's not a kosher thing. Is not in our hearts, but it's an added value for us, and it's very easy for us to do it. So if we're using wine casks, it's Israeli wines which are kosher. If we're using cognac casks, we sourced a distillery from La Rochelle that called Godet, which they are making for the last, I think, 50 years kosher cognac, and we got their cask. But the sherry was a problem, and Tomer tell them about the project with the rabbi.
What we had to do to get a kosher cask is to start our own seasoning project in south of Spain, in Jerez. So we brought the rabbi to supervise the production of the kosher sherry in south of Spain. The rabbi is from Barcelona, And we had such a three contract with the bodega and the cooperage in south of Spain, supervised by the rabbi. And we have our own seasoning project in Jerez to produce a kosher sherry cask for us. Unfortunately, the kosher sherry itself just goes to the sink after.
Yeah, we tried to find an importer for the kosher sherry, but no one actually drinks PX and Oloroso in Israel, so a kosher sherry. So, but the good thing about that, of course, kosher, but we know exactly who made the wine, what was the wine before it was seasoned, who made the casks. So we can monitor every step of this seasoning project and not just buy from another broker. And for us, it's great. And we really like, people say it's like an old style sherry whiskeys, and we're really happy about that.
And we really like to travel to south of Spain. It's really beautiful.
You know, we have a kosher certificate from the Rabbinate of Tel Aviv, but because, as we say, between two Jews, we have 7 opinions. So we got another one, which is the Star K. It's an international organization, which is easier for us now around the world.
Maybe I missed it, but could you tell me where you're getting the barrels from? What type of are they oak barrels from the U.S. oak or?
So most of the barrels we source from Kelvin Cooperage, and there are from MGP mostly, but we have also a lot from Jim Beam, Jack Daniels,
Four Roses, Buffalo Trace, Barton's, Claremont, I think.
So from a lot of different places, but it's all is that American oak?
Yes,
those are American.
All the ex-bourbon barrels are American oak.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
But so the STRs, which are red wines, but with the method of shaved, toasted, and recharred, are American oak too. And of course the cognac is Limousin. It's an oak from a European oak, which is more dense, and it's really a really good quality and different kind of an oak. And so we have some European oaks, probably from the wineries, and of course with I think what you can taste in the end, the pomegranate wine cask, which is European oak.
But I think we can move on to the triple cask.
I don't know. What do you say about this one, guys?
Yeah,
I think it's a collector's item right now. So
yeah, thumbs up if you guys like it. If you want to share any thoughts, do it. We still have some of these bottles lingering around Sacramento. I know Ro has some, but eventually he's going to run out. So you guys can contact me and I'll tell you where the rest of them are, like a little treasure hunt. But what's the second one that they should be poured into their glass? Or the third pour second whiskey?
Tomer, should we go for a classic or the peated one?
No, well, it depends on you. Drew, do you think we'll do the triple cask? It's slightly peated, or do you want to move on to the classic before?
I think we should do the classic before, just so we don't, compromise the palates with the peated. So yeah, we should definitely we'd probably go classic and then maybe the elements and then finish with that peated.
All right.
So actually, it's a logical way of growing from the double cask, the unpeated, to the classic. It's almost the same profile, but much older. Much older. 1.5 years in the Middle East, it's much older. In 1 year, we have 3 elections, so everything really happens here quickly.
Well, some of the people asked about the tasting notes, so we have it in front of us. And the classic is actually the entry level, the first permanent whiskey in our portfolio. And it's just the first whiskey, which whiskey for us is 3 years or more. As I told you, we are following the Scotch rules. So it's the first whiskey that we released in our portfolio. which is not young single malt like the whiskey in bloom. And it contains 75% ex-bourbon casks, 20% STR casks, and then about 5% virgin oak. And for me, this is what I believe whiskey or table whiskey should be. It's really balanced, well drinkable, a combination of sweet and just light spiciness in the finish.
I think I'll try to notice the oiliness, the body on this one, and I just had. I think we launched this whiskey in December in Holland, and we were doing like a market tour with our importers there, and in one of those shops that we went in, they asked me, what do you think? Compare it to years in a cold climate distillery, and we don't like to do it because it's not scientific. If it's 3-4 years in Israel, you cannot say it's like 12 years in Scotland or 10 years. But and I said, I think it's like a Highland style of whiskey with a little bit of spiciness, probably from the STRs. Just think about the STRs, which it's like a crocodile skin inside because it's shaved and toasted and recharred, and then in hot climate everything spreads and the liquid goes inside and absorbs more and more of the tannins and the fruitiness of the wood. But anyway, we ended up doing a blind tasting between the classic and Glenmorangie 10-year-old, which is very frightening for a very young distillery like ours. But this one had such a fuller body than a 10-year-old Glenmorangie, probably because of what Tomer said with the line arms and the very short and high cut, middle cut that we're doing. But the Glenmorangie was open in a second because of the 40%. We do everything at 46% because we don't chill filter, so it takes some more time to open, even without water, just a little bit more time, and then you get the full of the flavor. So we actually won in this blind tasting. It was great for us because you feel that it's more full-bodied and had a longer finish than the 10-year-old Highland, which was a little celebration for us. And I don't believe that I'm drinking whiskey at 7 o'clock in the morning.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Just say that it's 9 o'clock on the West Coast and
Okay.
you're fine.
So I guess, as Tomer said, it's mostly ex-bourbon, a little bit of red wine STR, and just a drop of virgin oak.
Just want to show you the next series of whiskeys that we will have. Actually, in the US, the sherry cask is already available. But the second tier of our portfolio will be the elements. And the elements just added another complexity, another cask type to each one of them. We have sherry casks, peated casks, and Israeli red wine casks. Also bottled at 46 ABV. And the reason for bottling at 46 ABV is that because we are not doing any chill filtration. Of course, not adding any color. It's all natural color. And for some of the people, it might be, the first sip might be a little bit harsh, but I see it as a whiskey drinker. I see it as an advantage to get a whiskey in 46, so I can decide whether I want to dilute it just a little bit, to add 2 drops of water, or to drink it as is. Okay, this is the next one.
So you can actually see the same style of those 2 whiskeys, but I think that in the classic you can see more depth, probably because of the age and a little bit of the STR, the virgin oak. But I really like. I forgot how nice was the whiskey in blue. We didn't have. I think we have only one bottle of the two of them, or just one of them left at the distillery.
What do you guys think of the sherry cask expression? For those who have
So
it.
first of all, a lot of people told me that our sherry feels like an old style sherry, which is for me a compliment. But I didn't want if I wanted to. I didn't know. I don't know if I wanted to achieve that or not. But it's good for me because a lot of people are looking for old style sherries. But when you think about the Element series, don't think about sherry bomb or full or heavily peated whiskeys. It's just well balanced with the additional of another cask of the another element, and it's my whiskey philosophy, or our whiskey philosophy. Sorry, Tal, to have a well balanced whiskeys and to try to get this balance, not to have a sherry bomb or a whiskey really full of taste and explodes your mouth and disappears all the character of the new make or disappear the distillery character.
When you're tasting either one of these elements, of course we're tasting the sherry now, you can feel it's a peated one or it's a winey whiskey or a sherry, but it's not overpowering. And this is, I think, what we wanted to achieve. And I always say that the Tomer, he thinks he want to achieve this one, but it's always that seems like it happened by mistake with him. But the turnout is good.
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
We'll have to reach out to our Connecticut broker and set that up, Gary. Thank you for the lead.
So the Element sherry is already available in the US?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yep. We have it out here.
When would we expect the other two?
You asking me or Sam? No, it's you didn't make it yet, so we have bottling this in like 2 weeks or something like that,
Okay, so
or
I think
something.
in a few months you'll have it, the other two also.
The next shipment. We actually had had a batch of the other elements, but just disappeared somewhere in Europe. They just because this is the first year that our casks that reached 3 years. So every time we have something that is 3 years, Tomer's doing the blend and we're bottling and it's gone. But next year we're gonna have a much bigger quantity. You saw the warehouses are full, and we are reaching I hope we're gonna reach the level that we have everything regularly and not have to wait for just another day or 2 days. I think that the most frustrating one was that the cask finally reached 3 years and we needed to ship it, but it was just on Passover. And Passover, we are closed because we are not kosher for Passover because it's barley. And we really wanted to go and empty the cask and blend it, but we couldn't. So sometimes it's just 1 day here and 1 day there, and it's killing me. So next year it's going to be like that.
Guys, one question for you, Brian here in Phoenix.
Hey, Ryan.
What is the maximum age do you think you'll be able to get out of any of the whiskeys? I know 3 years is about, where you're real happy with the balance with the Angel's share and all that goes on. What is your maximum level where it's not going to tip the scale too intensely with, obviously you could do a 5-year-old, but it's going to affect the flavor of the whiskey because of the Angel's share.
Well, we are not yet in the point of maximum maturation, in my opinion. We'll get there in a few years, but I think in the future, most of the whiskeys in the permanent portfolio will be aged for around 4 or 5 years. But the maximum period of time, it depends on the specific cask that we use. Maybe some cask range expressions will be aged for longer, but we don't know yet. We're not
Tomer,
there.
I know you love potchking with the casks, okay? So I'm going to ask you, what's the longest you've potchkeyed so far with something?
So we have 5 years old and a half, almost 6, ex-bourbon in our warehouse, and it's really, really nice. The ex-bourbon don't give a lot of taste, or it does the taste of the ex-bourbon goes over the other taste of the new make or the spirit. But there are casks like sherry or even wine that if you age it for 5-6 years in Israel, it will be too much flavors, too woody, in my opinion.
Or 2 weeks at the Dead Sea. So.
Yeah.
We're just trying to experiment now in 2 other places. One is the big crater. It's the Ramon's crater, which is a natural crater. It's about 800 meters above sea level, but it's in the middle of the desert, so it can snow in the winter, but it's very hot during the summer. So we're just located a little warehouse there, and there's another one just when you go up from the Dead Sea. There's a city called Arad, which is very, very chilly, and I think it's around 700 meters, but just like 25 minutes drive from the warehouse at the Dead Sea. So this is actually 1 kilometer in 20 minutes. You just go down with your car. So we're playing all the time, and now we have another one in the Sea of Galilee, which Sea of Galilee, it's minus 200 meters below sea level. Sweet water, not like the Dead Sea, and it's very, very humid. So it's very humid and even hotter than Tel Aviv. So we'll see. There's a Scots hotel. So we're going to put some Israeli whiskey cask in the St. Andrew's Scott Hotel at the Dead Sea in the Galilee, and we'll see. I think that if you have the whiskey at 42 degrees there, you can walk on water like Jesus. It's easy.
And guys, I know you're constantly trying to be creative with these barrels and stuff like that. And I seem to recall a conversation that you had with Joshua Hatton about some of the places that you actually put these barrels. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember you guys talking about putting them actually on top of a hotel.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's like, super weird.
Yeah, that's the place that we found at the Dead Sea. We just had a contract with the hotel over there and put it. The tiny warehouse is on a rooftop of one of the hotels just nearby the sea, and it gets really nice air. So technically, it's not minus 420; it's about 400, minus 400, because it's on the rooftop.
Okay, yeah, I think that's something that you definitely have to bring up because it's wild and a really cool thing that you're just kind of like, yeah, just on top of a hotel, we put a little mini warehouse, like no big deal
And
or
it's
anything.
really complicated to roll the barrels in the hotel.
Yeah. Just
Inside
think
nearby the rooms every time we want to replace the casks.
Yeah, so the bellhop doesn't help you with the barrels, get him up and down on his cart. That seems lazy to me. No tip for that guy.
You need to move the empty the room service plates to roll the casks there. And the problem is with the sherry cask that it doesn't go in the corridor, so we need to take it with a with a lift or something like that. But it is crazy. It is crazy. The sherry bots are 500 liters.
And then so but before we move on to the peated, which said we wanted to finish with, like I said, some of our people were able to get their hands on the pomegranate wine cask, And I'm sorry that it wasn't for everybody, but we didn't have enough for everybody. So hopefully everybody got at least, some of it. But can you tell us a little bit about that? And if you guys have the pomegranate, throw it in your glass. If you don't, again, we're sorry. Maybe it'll be here in a year or so.
So it's actually all started as another search for what is an Israeli whiskey. So of course we have the terroir, or the place with that we're aging, and the Israeli way of thinking outside the box all the time, or we are an impatient nation, so we are looking for stuff all the time. And of course, when you can age whiskey for 3 years and that's it. The good thing about this climate is that if you don't need to wait for 10 years to see how it develops because of the fast maturation. So it started off with a winery in the Upper Galilee, the northern part of Israel, which is a very high mountains there, and they're making wines out of pomegranates. Now, pomegranates is very common for us. We eat a lot of pomegranates. We drink pomegranate juice, and even in the Rosh Hashanah and Jewish New Year's, we eat pomegranates as a part of the ceremony. So as kids, we love pomegranates, and there's this size of pomegranates usually in this time of the year. And there is a winery that makes pomegranate wines, and I think it's probably the only one, or there's another one. They're making port style sweet fortified wines, and they're making rosé wines, or even red dry wines. Everything from pomegranates, their own variety that grows only here in Israel. And I'm not crazy about those wines because they're very, they're acidic, and just think about eating pomegranate. But they're very successful. They're making something like 1 million bottles a year, and very successful in the Far East because it's so healthy. It's very high in antioxidants. And having said that, we really wanted it to work because it was a great idea to be the first one that to use pomegranate wine casks. But then from this marketing idea to having a good bottle of whiskey, we really wanted it to be successful. So I think we brought some casks, and after a few months, we tasted, and we said, okay, we have something here. And we played with few varieties of those casks. I'm not sure what you have in yours. I think it's a mix of two, no, Tomer? You remember what we said?
If it's the that boutique or
No. I don't think it's that boutique.
No, so it's only what you have is only the dry casks, the dry wine casks. But I just want to show you. This is the next year of our portfolio, and the pomegranate wine casks will be bottled in this series. And the first pomegranate casks already emptied, and it's kept for the US market. So it will get.
We are waiting for the marketing guys to be ready with the labels and packaging and everything. But so the whiskey is ready actually. Look at the color of this pomegranate if you have it. Brian has one, and I think it's really crazy. It's got something earthy, and of course some acidity, which is very, very nice, and a little bit of tartiness from the pomegranate. I really love this one. It's sometimes you got chocolate or coffee or all kinds of flavors like that.
It is the bomb. There is no better that you guys make than that, in my opinion.
I will say that Sam was gracious enough to give us options on what we can select, because he had a few different opportunities for us. And most of our admins looked at it and were like, yeah, pomegranate. And then some of us were like, oh, we want the wine cask. I was like, how can you look at a pomegranate wine cask and not want that? I mean, nobody is doing that. I mean, it's out of pure curiosity, we had to have that one. And so again, we were lucky that Sam's nice to us and he gave it to us. So
I was hoping you're gonna say no. I thought, Pipit or Israeli red wine, something that's coming, but you were pretty persistent.
Yeah. Well, with me, you give me an inch, I'm going to take a mile. So.
Road
So
told me to take 2 miles. I don't know.
we have to be honest. I think the most very touching thing for us was before we had whiskey, we just had those um, young single malts. We started to sell it in Holland and a little bit in France, and then I had a meeting with those independent bottlers of the boutique whiskey company,
Mhm.
and I had in London we had tastings, and then I told him, I have another one which is crazy. I just want you to taste it, and it was the pomegranate one, and it was I think Friday morning or Thursday afternoon. I was landing in Tel Aviv in Friday afternoon, just turning on my phone, and I have a text message from the guy from the boutique. He said, definitely the pomegranate, and it was only 1 year old, and it was the first time that they actually bottled something that was called the boutique malt company and not whiskey. Oh, there you go. Yeah, with the label of Tel Aviv, and I think they probably still have some bottles at the Master of Malt, but it was crazy. It was so touching for us to see the invoice from Tel Aviv to Scotland, just like selling whiskey to the Eskimos. I have some questions there. It's yours. So I really like this one, and I think that we have some rum casks, which actually the Single Cask Nation stole one of ours, and this one.
Yeah, I was able to pull the trigger on that one and popped it open for the first time today to share with the guys. So so far the feedback seems pretty positive.
Yeah, I really like this one. We have a few of those, I think 20 or something like that, Caribbean rum casks. And of course, we talked about the cognac cask, which are going to be ready toward the end of this year, 400 liters, the big ones. And we're playing with IPA casks, beer casks, whatever. And every time we have a new idea, I think one of the interesting ones is wine casks from indigenous grapes. Indigenous grapes that there's a study in Israel about wines that are originally from the land of Israel. So it's biblical time grapes, not Cabernet and Merlot and Chardonnay. It's called Marawi and Bituni. One is red and one is white, and started to cultivate them again. And there's a winery called Rekanati in Israel that made the commercial wines out of those. And we are using their casks now to see. So we're probably going to age some whiskey in, I know, King David's time red wine cask or something like that. So it's very interesting to play and to see what and they're very different than the regular wines that you actually find in Israel. I think the last one we have is the peated one. Oh,
Yep, we'll stop teasing all those people who didn't get a pomegranate cask and
just
move
to
on.
answer Gary, I prefer the online version, the ex-bourbon cask, also over the rum cask from SCN.
Oh,
and that was not my fault that some of the people didn't get the palm cast. That was all Drew's fault. You should always know it's never my fault. It's always Drew's fault.
Yeah, I remember that how we sat with this with Joshua in your lab with the cask. It was 36 degrees outside of the lab, and the lab has a great air condition. So we just rolled in the cask and tasted it there from the cask. So whiskey in bloom. Tomer?
Yeah, so
Peated.
the triple cask, the lightly peated one, has also ex-bourbon and STR casks, but also ex-Isla casks. I'll let you guess from which distillery. But just to notice, the peat notes in this expression doesn't come from the barley, or not from our barley. It's from the cask, from the whiskey that matured before. So it's from the Isla Distillery barley.
So just to emphasize, when wineries are finished with their casks, cannot give them anything anymore. We started to use them because of our high ABV. But we can still use casks from Scotland or from cold countries that for them didn't give enough or just finished their cycle. We don't use a lot of those, but we are, because of our weather, we can still extract some more of their flavors that they can't anymore because of the heat, because of the expansion of things when it's hot. And we really liked it. So you can use an old peated cask that really was over the hill, and we get a lot of flavors from that.
Drew, is this like Pandaren Selt? Is that kind of the same
No.
approach with
Yeah.
that finish?
Yep.
Cool. That's why I like it so much.
And again, even the element, the peated element, which you're going to get in a few months, it's going to be the same method, same technique.
Yes, it's not a Isla cask finish, full maturation in Isla cask, but vatted together with ex-bourbon and STR casks. The peated element will contain in the future, not in the first batch, but in the future it will contain also peated barley that we mashed in our distillery.
I think
What do you guys think of the peated? Good. Thumbs ups. Some love out there.
As what I saw in the media, more people like the triple cask, the peated, than the double cask.
I think that the first time we ever went into a whiskey show was a 2018 London Whiskey Show, and we had one product, was the triple cask, almost like this one, but this is 2-year-old. We had a 5-month-old, and we were pouring that with some cask samples and the new make, and of course they didn't let us bring a gin in because it's a whiskey show. So of course we had 2 bottles just under the counter, and I just remember what they said about this one. If you take one sentence from the 3 days of the whiskey show, it was really only 5 months, and this is something that we really liked because it made a buzz. But it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the complexity and I think the balance of this whiskeys, and not the fast maturation. Fast maturation, it's something we have and we can play and we can reach and monitor every cask very thoroughly. But I think it's a very nice drum at 2-year-old, very balanced and very nice peat.
And yes, it is lightly peated, well balanced with the ex-bourbon casks. Not the peat doesn't come take over the notes and everything.
And one last thing I was hoping that you guys could talk about, and then we'll open it up for everybody else, is I get a lot of questions about the logo and a lot of compliments on the logo. I mean, I personally think it's one of the more creative ones that we have within our own portfolio. I was hoping that you guys could just talk about that and, kind of the inspiration behind, the name and then the logo and stuff like that.
Tal?
It's me, okay.
Marketing is you. Marketing.
So I think it's the milk and the honey. So of course, milk and honey comes from the land of milk and honey. So it's Israel. It's a Bible name, one of the Bible names of Israel. But we started playing with the logo, and of course, it was a milk and honey. So it was a cow and a bee mixed together. But it was very ugly, and I think that we thought that we needed something more, bull go together with whiskey, something more masculine, more something like that. But the logo was really, really not a whiskey type of logo. So the mix it came from the milk and honey. So it's supposed to be a cow and a bee from the milk and honey. So we're doing it a bull and a bee. And sometimes in whiskey shows, people ask us why. So we told them, in the Middle East, we're milking the bulls. I think it's a good answer. And we are calling ourselves more and more M&H because it's shorter, and because when people drink too much in whiskey shows, they think that we have milk and honey inside our whiskeys. So no, if it's sweet for you, it's because of the cask or the barley of the new make, and not honey or no milk. So we call ourselves more and more M&H. I think it's easier to remember like that.
Okay, great. So at this point, I know some people had some questions for you guys, so I just wanted to open it up. You can unmute yourself at this point and let your beautiful voice be heard. If you have any questions, I know Patrick had a question for you guys, so why don't we start with him, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah. First off, thanks for the video and waking up twice. You guys are the only guys that have shown up twice to do one tasting for us. So that puts you atop the pedestal for sure. I always give Drew a bit of flack because I tell him that every time he suggests a JVS import bottle, it's one of the fastest ones that goes in my bar. So this is definitely one of them. I put a big dent in this one over the past few weeks. But no, I think like super impressed with all your guys' lineups and the distillates, and like we look for barrels that we want to bring in, and we've had a number of people who wouldn't drink any sort of malt whiskey, and certainly had never had anything from Israel, and we've tasted some of the core lineup, and so like we would definitely love to explore any option to bring in like an entire barrel, and I don't know if that's possible. I know I've kind of aggressively commented on Sam's Facebook to a degree, but would love to pick your brains on that if that's an option. I know SCN is kind of a different group, but seeing and tasting like the barrel that they secured, and it would just be awesome to be able to expand that for our whiskey group members who kind of got this like itch off of the initial kind of core lineup, and they're kind of like want to explore more. And so I didn't know if that was possible at all, or what the options would be, but it looks like everyone's top choice would be a pomegranate cask, but I actually like the double cask. Like I make a huge dent in. I think it's delicious, and so it's one of my favorite bottles that I share out to anyone who comes to my house. And just was curious if that's an option or how that would be logistically possible.
I think it's the man to ask is Sam. We can do it. We have, I think, 3 or 4 casks in Germany this year. Logistically, I don't know, because America has more logistics problems and regulations than any other country in the world. But I think Sam, we don't have a problem. So Sam,
But we'll
please.
figure out how to do it. It's regulations.
So Patrick, yeah, we don't have any problem bringing it to you. We love your group, and we'll do everything to make sure that you have your own exclusive cask. We can start probably with Ro and Drew on the samples on other stuff, but yeah, we can make it. Short answer is yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Sign me up.
Great.
1 bottle per.
We just recently reorganized our whiskey admin group, and so Patrick's now in charge of barrels. So he's crushing it so far as we're concerned. Does anybody else have any questions for the guys while we still have them here? Like I said, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and let your thoughts be known.
I have a question. Do you guys have smaller size casks like for the group like this, if it's something like water cask or smaller port pipe, 100 liters?
So yes, of course, we have octaves and bigger. The octaves are the smallest cask that we have, but just yesterday, a container with Lafroy porter cask just entered the distillery. So we have quarter cask, which is 130 liters also. And yes, we have smaller casks.
Patrick, you might want to take a note on this.
Yeah, I mean, we can sneak in a sherry, but it just takes a little bit more logistical move arounds. But no, I agree. The sherry bud maybe is a bit ambitious, but 6 hours online. So
I think
I I hope you're recording this, right? This part with the sherry bud, right?
Yeah. It's all recording.
Yeah. No, I think it's good to know there's different options, but yeah, no, just really excited for what we could bring in, because I think it's just an awesome product. So let's go with it.
We have a sherry bomb. We have a sherry butt that
It is a cherry bomb.
a sherry bomb. No, it's not like that. It's the one we like. So we taste it all the time. So I think you get less liquid there. It's the ex Leche sherry butt. So yeah, it's a peated Leche. I think it was a 17 or 19-year-old Leche. So we have like 2 of those, but they're almost empty because we're really tasting it just to see the development all the time.
Yeah, no, we have so where our group is based is a huge wine and we're a whiskey group, and we live in a huge wine and a huge beer community. So that just tells you that they're luscious. So they're not very picky in terms of what the finish is, but certainly we've the red wine casks, we've had a lot of success with those barrels, and yeah, I think we're open to anything that's on the table to work through. So
we'll do a connection through salmon. No problem.
Yeah, cool.
Did you guys say what kind of casks the octaves were built from?
The octaves we have ex-bourbon and we have ex-rye whiskey.
Oh, that's interesting. Very cool. Thank you.
Wait, Robert's on this call?
I thought he went back to sleep about 10 minutes ago. Robert, what you heard the single cask opportunity, you decided to stay, huh?
I would like to try one of those octave ryes. That's super interesting.
That's super interesting. Yeah, they're really good.
They're like 56 liters, something like that, no? Or
yeah. It's really tiny.
I think we put some of them, not the 56. I think the quarter cask, the rye quarter cask at the Dead Sea was crazy, but it was probably empty.
So your octaves are around 1/8 of a cask. Is that what they are?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
All right. Do we have anybody else want to ask the guys some questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you guys. I love all the cast finishes you're doing, but you know, the ex-bourbon single cast nation really jumped out at me. Your spirit is wonderful without too much influence from wine or rum or anything else. Do you plan to release something just in ex-bourbon?
Of course. We have most of our casks are ex-bourbon, and we will release some ex-bourbon expressions in cask strength and single cask and things like that.
We just actually bottled one for the non-existing Paris Whiskey Live. It was just canceled, but it's the biggest whiskey live in Europe. It's around 16,000 people in 3 days. And La Maison de Whiskey, which is our importer, is the organization of the Whiskey Live. He was picking one cask, and usually the French people really like the peated whiskeys, but he just picked one, just a single bourbon, and it was a very good one, very, very good. We just tasted it yesterday. It was a very good whiskey. Only just a single bourbon cask.
So with Whiskey Live Paris not happening, is that cask available?
No, they took it. It's a big importer. They know how to sell single cask, and they know how to sell it very expensive.
Okay. Anybody else?
So out of curiosity, since you're the first distillery in Tel Aviv, how hard was that to accomplish? Because I don't see that being an easy task to do.
Nothing is easy in Israel. Nothing is easy. And Tel Aviv is an expensive city. The good thing about the location was that this is the southern part of Tel Aviv. When we started construction in 2014, it was like a place for, car shops. And actually the location we're in was a big bread bakery or supermarket breads. So we stayed in grains, but not baking right now. And it's a big location, but of course everything takes time because no one understands what you're doing. So we're not a winery, and we're not a bar, and we're not this, and we're not that, and then we are a food factory. And so yeah, it was hard, and it's still sometimes sometimes to have to explain to a supervisor from the city or whatever. But I think it's better to start before regulations, because regulations are always more hassle than along the way.
Sometimes we had to tell the regulatories what to do because they just didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah. There are some more distilleries in Israel, not in Tel Aviv, but in Israel there's one in the Golan Heights, and there's another one, actually two in the Golan Heights. One is a winery that makes a little bit of distillations, and the other one, and there's one on the way to Jerusalem in Bet Shemesh, somewhere there, and they're making I think bourbon style or something like that. But I think there are going to be more. It's the same with wineries. Of course, we have a 4,000-year-old wine culture, but it all came back like from 100 years ago until now. And the same thing with the craft breweries and now distilleries. So we have all around something like 4 or 5 distilleries.
Very cool. Let's see, anybody else?
So just a quick question for the guys at M&H. What was your guys' prior experience in the industry before starting M&H as a fresh startup?
Okay, so
I'm the oldest guy at the distillery. Yeah, really, just think about it. They're all young people, and so I'm the oldest one. I'm going to be 49 this month. I used to work for Diageo, mostly in Israel, but I used to work in Scotland from time to time, working in Lagavulin and Royal Lochnagar, but not as a distiller. So I made distillations there as a part of the courses, but I came from the whiskey business. But Tomer is the one that is making the magic, not me.
Yeah, so actually, I'm distilling at home for over 20 years. It is legal in Israel, unlike the US. And that's my first experience. Then I started to study it. And I had just a short periods at some Scotch distilleries. But I have a lot of friends, and we all share information and everything that anyone needs.
And of course, we had Dr. Jim Swan to design the distillery, the recipe, and he was the first master distiller, and he worked with Tomer. And yeah, but Tomer is from a kibbutz, he sits around with his chair and his shotgun and doing moonshine.
Marvin Popcorn Sutton.
Well, you guys are doing an excellent job. Everything that I've tasted from you guys has been stellar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for waking up for us.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
I can go to the gym now.
Yeah, you got that whiskey pre-workout. It's you can't beat it. Well, again, guys, thank you so much for all your time and of course giving us this really great information and providing us with even better whiskey. There's been a lot of negatives that we can pull out of the last 5 months, but I can say that one of the positives is that we've been able to connect with a lot of people internationally, and it's been really, really fun to do that. This was something that maybe we never would have considered before, and kind of through this strife, we've come up with a really fun concept, and we're happy that you guys were a part of it. This was really great. It seems like everybody had a really great time. We had a lot of new faces today too. If you're not part of the River City Whiskey Society, please join us. It's fun most of the time. So check that out. And yeah, and if you guys enjoyed any of the stuff that you had tonight, please click on that link that Ro just shared. You'll be able to get some special pricing on all of the M&H stuff that we tasted, and just continue to support them. And we love to see single malts growing across the world. So you guys, thank you for again
Thank
doing
you
it,
guys.
doing
And
it
also,
twice.
like even you guys should join the River City Whiskey Society once this whole COVID is over. I'm not sure if you guys plan to come to US. We would love to invite you guys to come visit us in Sacramento. We have a really good whiskey community, and we would love to set up like a dinner to just hang out with you guys. Maybe whenever cast drops, you guys can come here for the release party.
We'll definitely arrive to the US the moment we can.
Yeah.
And, we'll arrange that.
We were planning a road trip in the end of this month, but we need to wait. But I can assure you that as soon as they open the sky here, on the same second I'm at the airport, and it's the longest time I've been at home. So.
Well, great. Well, thank you guys again. Again, thank you to everybody that came tonight. It's really great to see new faces and make new friends. So yeah, go out, buy Milk and Honey, help put my kid through college too. And I guess cheers to everybody.
Cheers, guys. Good morning. Good evening. L'chaim.
All right.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.